Okay, so started pulling out some pieces from the frame kit, and this is the first section we need to deal with, and this is the arch that goes over the rear end. The parts are all kind of bagged together in a semi-intelligent method, so it's quite easy to figure out what part goes with what. Did run into a couple weird things like this piece was in the opposite bag of this piece, and just little things like that. But it's well thought out. You can tell the pieces had been glass beaded because there was a little bit of surface rust on them, and I'm a little nervous about the amount of rust still on them. So once I get these welded up, I'll probably just hit them with some WD-40 or whatever to keep them from getting worse, but then I'll have to sand them or rust inhibit them or something before I do the final paint. So first thing I'm going to do is just tack this together in this corner. This edge is fitting nice and tight, but the piece has to kind of bend in a little bit. So I'm just going to tack right here and then clamp it all up square after I tack it, just so that it's working with me instead of against me. Let's see. So there's going to be a lot of welding right here. As you can see in the background, I got the jig set up for the frame. Hopefully you can see it. There you go. So that's ready. Should be able to get this whole show started here over the next few weeks. So I don't know how much time it's going to take me to weld this. Again, I'm not an expert in TIG welding. I am just going to do what I do. So yeah, let's see what we get. Just going to do a couple little tacks on that hinge point, then clamp it and square it all up nice. Okay, I got a pretty fresh tip on there. Need a little more heat. Look some things. Go up to 125. Yeah, that's better. Okay, let me tack this one. Okay. Now, oops, you can see the backside still spread a little bit. So now I'll use a squaring technique to pull all this in. I hope. Okay. Take the other bar here, slide it under here. That should be about exactly right. And it is. Okay. So if I just push this down, grab some clamps. Perfect. It's drawing that right in nicely. All right, clamp the other side. Okay, that closed that one right up nice. This one I could use a little more, I think. Pretty good. I'm gonna put a clamp on that tab once I get this tacked better. Okay. Now I will tack this side. Okay. All right, now hold that up for a sec. Tab's a little high. All right. Yeah, so I'm just going to continue to tack this in. My tab's pushed around a little bit. And I contaminated my tip. Perfect. Okay. All right, you get the idea. I'm going to flatten these tabs out and weld this up a bit. Okay, so I've clamped up I've added the rear rail, this bit here. You can see it in the drawing here. And got it, got everything on a nice plane here, made sure that my other welds are not sitting up, they're in a hole, they're not sitting up on anything that would cause it to distort, because you want a nice even plane through here. Like any other good welding project, you want to make sure that when you're butt welding, like in here, I don't know if you can see that real well, but you want to taper, put a V-groove to lay your weld in. That's pretty key. So I'm just going to go ahead and tack this in a couple places first. Get it ready to go. Then I'll probably flip it over before I do any serious welding. I'm just going to tack on this end. Okay. More better. Whew. Boy, that's getting weird over there. I'm gonna have to grind that off, I think. Just get another tack out here on the edge first. There we go. Okay. Not really clamping on anything here. Not good. All right, here we go. All right, let me hit that other corner, then I'll flip it. I've learned that if you touch the tip at all with the the TIG, you contaminate it, stop and flip it. Don't try to push through, because it'll work, but you're just going to end up putting a big ball on the end of it, and it's just going to make it harder to grind and clean for the next time. All right, let's try this again. All right, so that's pretty good. Now I will flip this over so that I can tack the other side and start welding it up. And first thing I can see is I gotta grip this end here with the vice grips to pull that up. Now, one thing I really like about the way Russell designed this from Nerd Rods is one side you have a diamond shape and the other side is more of a rounded shape. So you can't get it on backwards. Very clever, Russell. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to take that, click that off for a sec. Probably going to flip this back over and start welding the other side. Clamp down again, because I don't want it to wander. And it just clamps better this way. I'll go through here. I don't have an official welding table, but this one works pretty good. It gives you lots of options to clamp and hold things, and these little F clamps work really well with it. All right, so my rule of thumb has been, I've been using 16th inch TIG rod anywhere where I'm butt welding, but where I do the where I'm doing like then where I have a V feature or gap I can, you know, really get into structurally, I'll go to the 3/32 rod. But that's just my preference. Again, not an expert. Wow, it still wants to act funny in that area where it had porosity. That sucks. All right. And just having a little V groove there gives your rod some place to go. Whoa! One of my tacks just let go. Makes it fun. All right, to prep these larger pieces, I'm just using my surface conditioner, my Harbor Freight one. It works good for this. So I just want to make sure all the surface rust is off. They're pretty clean, but there's some spots that it looks suspect. All right, so the next step is getting these shocks mounts welded in. There's two different sizes. There's a wide tang and a narrow tang. Makes it very easy to get them right. And he's actually got another notch on the far side that these click into to keep them nice and straight. So you just slide them in, find the other side and tack them up. There you go. That's a nice looking setup. All right, so I'll weld these up and bring you back. Okay, so here we are. We've got the caps welded on, shock brackets, bat wing bracket, the other cap, and the sway bar mount. So the next thing we need to do, I got that done on both. I got one more sway bar mount to do, but the next thing we're going to do is we got to put the body brackets in this spot. And I will show you how that goes. But first, let me finish up this. I'll put this one aside, grab the other one, do the other bracket, and then get those body mounts ready to go. All right, so the next thing I've got to build up are the body mounts for the rear bed. Now, this kit comes a few different ways, and this is the really clever part of this build. So this bracket, if you are doing basically a really low body or a slammed body, we call it, this, you just use this, and I believe there's a ring that goes around the front of it if you're just doing that, which is fine. Now, if you're putting it up at normal body height, there's a spacer that gets up probably 3 inches here. I'm not sure exactly the right height, but it's about 3 inches. And in talking with Russell, I'm like, well, you know, I'd like it low, but I don't want it stupid low. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, scrape my rocker panels. I said, but I would like it to be a fairly reasonable height. And he said, okay, no problem. I know exactly what you need. So he has this like middle tier option where he has this 1-inch spacer that goes on the body beds. I mean, the bed body mounts, and it just builds it up a little bit higher. And then you use this affair, you just weld this together, and you're there. So, you know, you got the slammed height, the medium height, and then the tall height. So, you know, he's pretty flexible on that. He can, he cuts a lot of these, like these pieces were cut on a Dragon CNC. They're not laser cut, and he can cut those to order in-house, which is really nice. He's pretty well set up down there. So I'm going to go through and tack these, get these tacked up and set and welded, and then I will come back, and I might even MIG weld the inside perimeter right in here just to make it a lot easier, but I don't know yet. So I'm going to tack them all up the same first, TIG weld up around this perimeter and down. So here, all the way around and down. It seems like it's going to be a little harder to TIG the inside on that front edge here. So not even really sure you need to, but anyway, we're going to go through this and I will show you what I'm into when I get it going. All right, so I just did like 3 quick fusion tacks, 1 on each side and 1 in the back. I ran these parts for a couple hours in the tumbler yesterday afternoon just to get them all fresh and clean, and boy, that cleans them up nice. So smaller parts I try to run through there, bigger parts I use the surface conditioner, and I forgot to do the cross pipe up front, so I'll have to do that after the fact with a surface conditioner and a sander. But okay, so now I'm going to take and TIG these up. I'm just going to run literally up here and around that horseshoe. And then, like I said, I'm probably going to MIG in here. You can't see it anyway, so I'll just do a couple of nice spots in there with the MIG, and I'll spray them down heavily, and then I'll TIG on the top cap, which goes like that after the fact. So, all right, I'm going to continue on. All right, there's all 8 of them. They're TIGged up. I did throw a little bit of a MIG weld down in the bottom there. I cheated, but it was just expediency more than anything. So we got those ready for the caps. Those will go on next. And they just go, I might try to rig up something to rotate these on, but just to make it a little easier to weld. All right, those are all done. Looking good. I'll show you where those go on in a minute. But yeah, those are the bed, truck bed, rear bed body mounts. So good to go. All right, so I put the front rail on the jig with the rear hump. This rear rail sits up about 5/8 of an inch higher, half to 5/8, I think it's 5/8. So that's why there's a slight overhang up there, but that's okay. So I just evened this up nice before I clamped it down, and then clamped that down and drew it to the right location. And now I'm just gonna go through and weld this up. And I've cut my V-groove in it, as you can see. And I'll weld this right up good too. And then we'll move on to the next step. I haven't set up the second one yet, but I wanted to get this one done first just to make sure there wasn't anything weird that I didn't quite understand. So there we go. All right, so I've got both sides still clamped down to the jig. Got it all lined up. Got my body mounts welded. I've just got to flip these rails over now and hit the back sides. But yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'll weld up, probably done for today, and I'll weld up the back sides next week and put the little caps in that gap down here. But yeah, so far so good. Everything looks straight. And all right, the next thing I'm going to get started on is the what I call the front cross section, or the front clip. This is from the bumper back to just in front of the K-member. I don't know what these are technically called. I'm calling them kickers. You got to weld these up first, and you can see what I mean by he has different shapes for different interfaces, so that you can't get it backwards. Because, you know, obviously there's a 45-degree angle cut here, it's flat there. This has to be in the correct orientation. So I'm gonna tack these up, weld these, and get this ready to attach to the front cross rail, which is the piece that sits directly behind the bumper, as you can see here. So I'm gonna just tack these up and keep moving. I've got some of the body mounts are in the tumbler right now, so I'm trying to clean those up a little bit before I start working those out. But for right now, I'm just gonna keep going. So here's those kickers I just welded up, and they're attached to this front cross rail. And this is the piece that sits right behind the bumper, as you can see here. I've got my square blocks clamped up in there. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to tack the top. I also made sure that this slot lined up. They had some little pieces in there. I'm not even sure what these are for, but just use them to make sure that I can get down in this slot and keep it lined up. So, all right, I'm going to tack up the top, flip it over, make sure everything still looks good on the bottom, then I'll weld it up. Okay, so this is it flipped over. You can see again, he's got clever shape, so this can only go together one way. I did V-groove everywhere I butt weld, I tried to V-groove. But I'm glad I did flip it over, because this one had spread just a little bit. So it's much nicer now. Just put a little clamp on it, and we're good to go. Okay, and that's that section done. So this is a low body, so you don't use there is an option that you can put risers right here for the radiator support, but we don't need that in this case. So yeah, I think I'm actually going to weld those slots up once I verify that. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and I think we're ready to go. Next step. So the last thing that has to go on this front clip is this bumper bracket. And that is basically it. So I've got it squared up, lined up, everything trued up. These things, it works really nice the way this tab and tongue locking system works. I mean, it really is tight tolerance. It's all laser cut. Really nice work. So anyway, gonna go ahead and weld these up. Then we'll start, and then that'll be it for the front clip. And I'll start working on some other bits. All right, that's it for the front clip. Bumper brackets are on. Gonna just set this aside now and move on to the next step. All right, so these are the brackets I'm gonna use to hold my frame to the jig and keep everything lined up. So I cut these individual parts on my plasma table, and this is how they go together. And ultimately, I'll show you how it works, but this slides over the jig. I'll drill and tap holes in the jig to pick up some of these screws, and then you just set the frame rail in the saddle, and then I have this pad on the bottom so I can clamp it. Have something nice, flat surface to clamp it against. So, I'm gonna MIG these together. I'm not gonna go too crazy with it, just a little bit of weld to hold them, and then set them on the rig, and I'll show you how they line up. And that's what they look like done. So I've just, you can see I just welded a small amount at the top of each tab, just in case I gotta, manipulate it a little bit. And then you simply just take the frame section you're working on, and it's fun to do one-handed. Ah, that's still hot. Duh. Now, you can see it's not completely constrained, but it's very close, certainly within the tolerance of what we're working on. So now I can take a clamp it off this way against that pad that I put on the bottom here, and just square it right up. And this is gonna help keep everything nice and true when I'm building up the rest of it. So, you shall see. We will carry on.